thinking about what to say about my friend Pete, I just had this rush of stories that each one was more unbelievable than the next. And I thought, well, I can't tell the story about the time. We were so dirt poor, as writers, that he needed a car. He got a teaching job. He had no car. He had a bicycle. You can't go down to Georgia, to get a teaching job on a bicycle. He needed a car. So I said, all right, I got this car. The steering is broken. You can only turn it left. We'll get it fixed. We'll get it fixed and you can drive it to Georgia. But, this is a piece of shit. You can get rid of it. It's okay. All right. So he comes to Virginia, shows up. I said, now, Pete, why don't we buy a car instead? Buy a $2,000 car. No, I'll take the car. I'll just turn left everywhere I go. All the way to Georgia, from Richmond, Virginia to Georgia. Oh, Pete, let's go look at a car. I know how to buy cars. So we go to this place and, we look up in whatever used to be Craigslist, the back of the paper, and, excellent condition, $2,000 car, only, 60,000 miles on it. We go to this place in the country, cows loose around, and Pete fires it up and says, it's a El Camino. I love El Caminos. I said, it's a piece of shit, Pete. The tires are bald. It's like green smoke is coming out the back. He goes, well, one man's piece of shit is another man's Cadillac, Bill. Pete says. So we're about to drive it off. He said, just take it around the block once. No, it's good. I can tell, Pete says. He gets in the car. We go maybe, not a block, we go 50 feet. The fucking thing catches on fire. So I had this thing, we're sitting in this burning car, literally flames, and neither of us are going to get out. We're going to wait for the other guy to get out while we think of something funny. It finally hits me. Yep, one man's piece of shit is another man's flaming death. I just want to say a few words about, me hearing about. I was kind of incapacitated when I heard Pete passed. And, I think about, the way people say that. He passed after a long battle with cancer. After a long illness, a battle with cancer, Pete didn't lose any battle with cancer. I know he had it 3 times, and the 3 times that I knew, he beat it. He beat it, thrice. So I think the last round was more like a tie. Why? Because in the old days they'd say, "Hey, that old writer guy, he died." But now they say, "Oh no, hey, he lost his battle with cancer." But that's not the way to end your life. Like, it's like saying, "Wow, he lost his battle. What a loser that guy was. The last thing he did was lose." So I don't think of it that way, and I don't think Pete would either. I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure if you die, the illness dies, so the cancer also dies. So if anything, it's a draw, right? I don't know. I was telling Andrew that, these stories are truer than true. Particularly this long piece. I'm just going to read a bit of it, called "The Living." It took place in a hellaciously dirtbag apartment on 107th Street between Amsterdam and Columbus, back when it was notorious. It's like a drug alley. You could hear machine guns, like Singer sewing machines, on the roof at night. I was like, zzz, 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 zzz. But the great thing was you could work 2 days a month and pay rent. You know, it was only like $150, $200 a month. You know. So we had a series of writers and artists coming through there. Oh, what? I can just work 2 days and write the rest of the time? But the sad thing was, eventually, one of our roommates, this kid that comes through, is like right off the plane from like Iowa, Indiana, or somewhere. He's this corn-fed, beautiful, naive, sweet, just heart like a sunflower. Beautiful kid, Brett, and you know he wasn't going to last a minute in New York. He's going to get eaten alive, but he made it. And when Pete and I would be digging change out from behind the couch cushions that fell out of his pocket, he would do things like he would leave a 20, like in the kitchen, or like by your bed. He left Pete $100 one day, not asking him. Just a wonderful, sweet guy. But anyway, this story, the living recounts the end of this young man's life. After he left gangster 107th Street and moved to the Tony Upper East Side. At the newspapers I worked for, death was something poked at from the safe distance of words that mean very little, such as he died unexpectedly, or he passed away suddenly after a battle with cancer. Most newspaper men I knew tried to do this the best they could in the obits they worked on, getting all the so-called facts in, a summary of somebody's life in 6 or 10 inches of column script before the 30 or 45-minute deadline passed that we had. Most of us try to stay away from the hard knowledge of what really happens when we die, as if we're innocent bystanders to even our own lives. We try to carry on as if nothing as bad as death will ever happen to us. If we are lucky, just more dates and names and other messy print, like from the newspaper, will come off on our hands from the back pages before the weather and after the sports. I've tried to come up with words that might show you how he died. The words used by his doctor are like the sun in winter, something I can see but not feel. His brain quit, closed down. He can no longer do anything more with the oxygen pumping into his lungs from the respirator, and he just died. A cop was the one who told me much later after everything that happened. Yeah, we pinched the fucks, but we couldn't get anything on him, the cop told me, in return for something I once did for him so way back when that neither of us could remember what that something was. The cop told me this sometime I had gotten away from 107th Street, and I was living literally in an office that I had to leave during the day and come back to at night after business hours were over. This was after Brett had moved with Alyssa to one of the better neighborhoods where he and she would be safe, where he should have made it. The cop told me Brett and Alyssa had returned from running in the park. They had gone for a run on a day that I believe I really do remember. That I want to remember as one of those days at the end of the summer when the sunlight and shadows are large all around you, and light and shadows larger than the high-rise buildings, the falling light and shadows so seemingly absolute, with those shadows moving slowly, absolutely, while there is the dry leaf smell, the lazy quiet, the almost paradisal heat of the city. The cop told me the following late afternoon. The cop told me that after the following late afternoon in the park, Brett and Alyssa had just stopped at a grocery store. Brett was seen by witnesses as he stood outside the store in the shade of the building, eating a popsicle, plastic grocery bags at his feet. Witnesses also later told the cops how Brett was seen just minding his own business when two young men came walking by and went out of their way to kick the grocery bags over, sending apples and oranges rolling along the sidewalk and into the gutter. Brett said something to them. The bigger one hit Brett. The bigger one walked up to Brett and sucker punched him. Brett fell and struck the back of his head on the sidewalk as Alyssa was coming out of the store, and she saw Brett go down, saw the two young men running from what they had done to her Indiana boy, her toy collector, her laughter, her cheese doodler, who was already twitching colder by the time she held him. He's on the train. The train car we were in whammed along, and I watched the cop and some others, paperback readers, a man working a pencil at a crossword puzzle, briefcase carriers, sleepers, a young woman hiding behind sunglasses, all of them looking a lot braver than I feel. None of them was letting on how they were tiny, nerve-ending bundles of terror, stunned hearts and minds, neither loved nor loving. None of us, whatever we were or were not, had the imagination to even scream. I watched a woman with 3 sleeping kids and a gigantic bag of laundry. The train clattered underground and came out again quieter. The girl with the sunglasses was watching me. I could tell she was. I stared back at her until she took off the sunglasses. Alyssa, appearing a lot different from just having her dark hair cut wavy short, different from the photographs and snapshots of her that I had seen on Brett's desk at 107th. She looked at me and did not say anything, and when she did, she said, "I know you." I talked from my small mouth while the train hurtled on. "You know," I said, "I've been thinking about him." She smiled at me and at my meagerness, and she put her sunglasses back on. The braking wheels screamed, and the subway train came to a stop. The train doors opened, and we got off together. All I could do was kiss her hair before she walked away into what was left of her young life, already old with sadness. Seeing her like this, her dignity, her real bravery, was better to me than eating steak. I watched her walk away until I could not see her anymore. And I was again reminded how there is never any answer good enough, never any consolation. Last night, I dreamed I was walking in darkness. I woke in the coldness of my empty slum room, and from where I lay in bed looking out the window, I could see there was little light from the sky. In my dream, I was walking in a place of absolutely no light, and I was afraid. Snow was beginning to fall. Snow filled the darkness with a pale light, as if the faintest kind of blessing I looked closer, and instead of snowflakes, fetuses, no larger than snowflakes, were suddenly falling all around me. I held out my hand. Tiny fetuses floated into my hand. I looked down and I could see their tiny feet, their tiny hands and heads. But in my dream, I knew they were fetuses and I knew they were still alive. I could see their blind eyes, their chests rising as they drew breath, the beating of their tiny, bulging hearts through the milky skin of their nakedness. I could see their mouths opening greedily for the sweet, hot milk of life, and I was no longer afraid. Thanks, Pete.